This full moon in Libra on April 12th/13, depending on where in the world you reside, is the first major milestone from the eclipses that we experienced in the previous month in March. But don't let the demure stereotype of Libra fool you, because this full moon is literally the definition of grace under fire, and that's because Mars is playing a very pivotal role in this milestone. So let's get to it. So I invite you to stay to the end, because we're not only going to take a look at the stars above, but we're also going to take a look at the tarot below to get some insight as to how best to utilize this full moon energy. If the eclipses were the threshold, the doorway to a new beginning, then this full moon is the entryway. So just like most transitions in life, they aren't immediate. It usually is more of a gradual process. And this is a good thing, because when changes happen really sudden, really fast, it usually is really chaotic and quite painful. This full moon is ushering in a new phase, finally, that many of us may have been waiting for the majority of the last 2 years for. And that's because what I see here is that this full moon is still pulling from when the North and the South Node were in Libra and Aries. The South Node was in Libra, North Node in Aries, and on January 11th, that's when those two shifted into Pisces and Virgo. So the North Node is what it is that we're moving towards. The South Node is the lessons that we've already accumulated, or the theme of the phase that we are being invited to let go. When that moved on January 11th into Pisces and Virgo, the North Node being in Pisces invited us to start dreaming a new dream, to start recalibrating, putting together, if you will, the new blueprint for how we will relate in the world at large. And the Virgo being in the South Node was allowing us to analyze all of the wisdom, all of the challenges, everything that we have been accumulating for the most part for the last couple of years, to analyze and to assimilate both the good things as well as the disappointments. So over the last couple years, most likely you have experienced some sort of upheaval in some sort of relationship. You may have changed your job, you may have gotten divorced, you perhaps have let go of certain friends, or at least renegotiated terms with those relationships, with those friendships. Perhaps you had to renegotiate terms and boundaries with your intimate relationships. You may still be kind of working out the details on how you might want to change your livelihood, if that is the aspect of relating that is affecting you the most. Many people have moved over the last couple of years, and this full moon will usher in and start solidifying those changes as they relate to not what it is that we've let go of, but what it is that we want to claim for our future. This is a very powerful full moon to leverage. And keep in mind that the eclipses that we experience from March, that's setting the tone for the next 6 months. And if you didn't get a chance to watch those, I invite you to watch those, because that gives you kind of a flavor of what kind of themes are rolling around in the background as we go through each one of these lunar events over the next 6 months. And we'll start to see how these different milestones relate to those overall themes of change that those eclipses have ushered in. Libras oftentimes do a really good job at gracefully surfing the ebbs and flows of change. And that is a very good thing, because we have some major change coming in. So there's 2 stelliums that are a really big deal around this full moon. And a stellium is when 3 or more of the celestial bodies are in the same sign. So the moon is squaring Mars at 27 degrees in Cancer, and what we're going to see is that Mars is creating almost like this fulcrum point where it is connecting to both of these stelliums, to both the stellium that's in Aries, that includes the sun that is in Aries at 23 degrees. Chiron, the wounded healer, is right on top of the sun at 23 degrees. And then Neptune is also part of the Aries energy at 0 degrees in Aries. So the moon is squaring Mars, and then Mars then is squaring these three celestial bodies, Neptune, Chiron, and the sun. And so a square is like a place of friction. And what's very interesting is that the moon also has a trine with the other stellium. This stellium is in Pisces. So you kind of see where I'm going, where the north and the south node, where it was in Pisces, or when it was in Libra and Aries. Now we have this Pisces and Aries kind of energy, which is combining our identity with Aries, and how that's shifting, how that's becoming a little bit more malleable for a lot of us, with dreaming the new dream, which is the energy of Pisces. Well, let me back up for a second. Let's talk about this Mars that trines this other stellium in Pisces, because this is the other way in which Mars is acting like this fulcrum. So Pisces has Venus at 24 degrees, Saturn at 25 degrees in Pisces, the North Node at 26 degrees in Pisces, so all of these are almost like right on top of each other, and then Mercury at 28 degrees in Pisces. So we have the kind of the rub from the square, where the moon is squaring Mars, and then Mars is squaring the stellium that's in Aries. And then Mars also is trining the stellium that's in Pisces. So a trine is more harmonious. So if a square is like a place of friction, a trine is a place of ease. So over the next couple of weeks, it's very possible that you might start feeling more of the frustration first before you get into the place of ease. But this is more of a recalibration. If you start getting like really irritated, angry, basically if you're feeling any extreme emotion, whether or not the emotion is a positive emotion or one that's an uncomfortable emotion, take a moment to pause. Take a moment to pause. Don't make any decisions out of a place where you're highly activated in either a positive way or a negative way. Wait until you get to a place where you feel a little bit more balanced, Libra, and then you'll probably have a bit more objective perspective to be able to make really conscientious decisions. And chances are, because you'll be basing it on wisdom as well as intuition, because Pisces is all about intuition, imagination, and dreaming up of the possibilities, chances are you're going to make some good decisions. So with the square that's in Mars, let's talk a little bit about like what it is, the nature of why it is that we might feel a little frustrated, or what might be the friction from the square. And then that lets us know like how best to use the more graceful aspects to our fullest advantage. That's why we want to take a look at the conflict. So the moon that's squaring Mars in Cancer, and then Mars is then, it's squaring the sun in Aries and Chiron in Aries. So Chiron is the wounded healer, and our sun is our identity. Chiron is what's beautiful about Chiron is when those wounds are healed, then they become medicine. It's almost like taking the venom and making the antidote from the venom. And that is the magic of Chiron. So any kind of frustrations, the kind of things that might be excavated from those pasts, especially from the past couple of years, these are probably going to be calls for you to bring into question how it is that you show up as a sovereign individual. And that, because that's Aries. Aries is all about our identity. It's about the sovereign self, the sacred self. And it also calls into question, like, what kind of boundaries do I need to have in order to have healthy relationships that are more balanced and more reciprocal? It calls into question how much it is that we might be compromising, and where the line is between compromise and complete self-sacrifice. And that brings in Neptune at 0 degrees in Aries. So whenever a planet is at 0 degrees in any of their zodiac signs, that is a place of new beginning, new potential. I look at 0 as like the cosmic egg. So here we have Neptune is also the planet that rules Pisces. So here we have, again, another kind of amalgamation of Pisces and Aries. What it's really asking us to become is really to take a look at our fullest potential, what it is that gives us joy, and aligning ourselves with that. And Chiron being on top of the sun, which represents our identity, is letting us have a clearer vision on where it is that we might be acting more from a trauma-based response, from a wounded place within ourselves, and calling into question how safe those coping mechanisms are actually keeping us. Is it a false sense of safety that is coming from more of a feeling of familiarity, or is it actually helping us? So we're going to get a clearer vision on the answer to these things over the next couple weeks. And that's where some of that friction might come from. As we take a look at these things that are really uncomfortable, we're going to be able to have a bit more clarity on what it is that specifically we need to do. And Mars, being the fulcrum point in all of this, Mars is always associated with war, but in its more positive aspects, it's also associated with passion, it's associated with action. It's really what, if Mars is the chariot driver, it's what allows us to get up off of our seat and have the courage to ride that chariot forward into new areas that may be unknown. Pisces is more etheric. It's not as defined. And because all of this is equating to a new beginning, where it's like the Fool card in the tarot, where that's the first card in the entire deck. It's a new beginning. It's jumping into the unknown and knowing that as we go forward, that's how the details will flush themselves out. So have a generalized version of the essence of what it is that you want to embody, and then the way that we can leverage this the best is by taking very small steps forward. A small step forward is still a step forward. And then if we're just start moving in the direction of where it is that we're going, the generalized direction, we're going to get to where we want to go. This is literally like follow your bliss. And like that Rumi quote of like, what it is that you seek is also seeking you. That is really what Pisces is here to tell us. So we're going to be facing our fears, we'll be facing our doubts, and Mars is there to give us the courage to take action. And where it's going to take you, it has the potential to completely surpass anything that you previously could have dreamed. This is asking us to dream the big dream. So there's this feeling that like the same old, the patterns, the routines, it's just not enough anymore. We're craving something more. We're craving something bigger. And so as you excavate that, know that also the moon is trining Jupiter at 17 degrees in Gemini. So Jupiter expands anything that it touches, and because this is a trine, it's a harmonious, very helpful aspect. And so this Libra energy is being amplified by Jupiter. So the sense of balance, the sense of objectivity, and the ability to take more of a pragmatic approach is being supported in a very big way with Jupiter trining the moon. And then as we have Mars that trines the stellium, and like that I talked about in Pisces, where we have Venus, Saturn, North Node, and Mercury. Now, what's also very interesting about that stellium is that Venus and Mercury are both part of it. And Mercury just came out of its retrograde on the 7th, and Venus is going direct on the same day as this full moon. And Venus rules Libra. So Venus went retrograde on March 1st. And so for the last, I guess that would be almost 6 weeks now, Venus has been going more inward. We've been taking stock. Perhaps there have been some things that we've wanted to shift or change, like more like false starts that have been kind of like failure to launch kind of thing. And so there may have been kind of maybe some lack of luck. Some of us may have had some financial setbacks. You may have had an ex or an old relationship show up out of nowhere. That's always kind of like a stereotype around Venus retrogrades. May have had some issues in our marriages or intimate relationships, close relationships, family. And now it's going direct. So we have Venus and Mercury. Now they're starting to move forward in the sign of Pisces, and they're in line with Saturn, which is about karma. It's about time-bound consciousness and creating structure, as well as our North Node in Pisces. And so the North Node is associated with what it is that we are collectively moving towards. Pisces is also very spiritual oriented. So and because Mercury is in Pisces, there's a very good chance that you may be getting a lot of downloads, aha moments, really active dreams. In fact, active dreams have been really a predominant theme over since the beginning of March. So there is so much support on you being given the proper information in order to make really good decisions to help you embody and align with the kind of future that you truly deserve, that your soul is searching for. Not just like, accumulating more wealth for wealth's sake, or, titles or accolades. In fact, this full moon is asking us to let go of labels, to let go of boxes, to let go of, preconceived judgments that kind of box us in, because Pisces is about taking the big vision. It's about taking more of an organic approach, and this is really about experiential wisdom and embodiment. So if we take a look at Venus, Venus is about material wealth and material resources. We have Saturn, which is karma. We have North Node, which is purpose, and Mercury, which is about communication. You have everything that you need there, and it's trining Mars, which is about action. Everything that you need is literally lining up in this stellium to make that blueprint, because Pisces is about the potential. It's about dreaming that new dream. So you have your time-bound consciousness and your karma, you have your material resources, your ability to process information and to communicate, which is Mercury, and your sense of purpose, all lining up in a harmonious way to support you creating a new blueprint, a new plan, a new vision and strategy for how you want to relate and how you want to step into the future from here on out. This is such a huge deal. And in creating that blueprint, you might have things from your past where you're just like, oh, I didn't like that. Oh, you know what? I don't really like how I show up for that. Or, oh, that's a habit or a belief that isn't very helpful. And I'm gonna have to let that go. Confidence issues are gonna come up big. That's gonna be a big deal for a lot of people, because a lot of stepping into the unknown requires us to up-level our ability to believe in ourselves, in our abilities, and in our worthiness. It's going to stretch our identity, and that's why Pisces is there to say, let go of the labels that you've put on yourself. Let go of how you think you identify yourself. Let go of what it is that how it is that you think you should show up, and really get clear on what it is that your spirit is saying, on how it wants you to identify in order to be, for your identity to be the true vessel of expression versus being a dogmatic cage that your spirit has to live in. So if our identity becomes so rigid that it's no longer malleable, it's not authentic, it's stagnant, it's stuck. It means that it's not allowing for the malleability that's required for growth and for true self-analysis. Identity can become an ideology. Identity can be so rigid and so stuck that it's like, this is how I am, this is who I am, and if I, walk out of the parameters of that, I'm either not going to be authentic, I'm not going to be understood, or I'm not going to be safe. Pisces is here to say, forget all of that, scrap it. That may be who you were, but who do you want to become? Because this full moon is wiping the slate clean, and anything that you thought defined your past does not have to be brought into your future. This is a really, really powerful full moon. So this is a perfect time so that if you tried something before, maybe several times, maybe more than that, and you failed, this is a perfect full moon to take advantage and just try again. I saw a thing on Michael Jordan that he failed 366 times, and that's how he won 706 games. I have no idea if those numbers are correct or accurate, but it just kind of demonstrates the point that those who truly succeed, it's usually because they have had the tenacity to fail many times in order to get to where it is that they need to go. And that failure is really just, again, another label, another description, and another judgment that can keep us in a cage. So this is a very freeing, a very liberating full moon that has the ability to help us step into a new future, and that's more graceful, because that's Libra. That's more balanced, that's Libra. But that means that we might have to acknowledge and deal with some of the lingering imbalances in order to get there. Nothing's for free. So there was something that I wanted to, there's this person that showed up in my algorithm on my social media feed, and his name was Dan Goldfield, and this is an individual who wrote about, I don't remember if it was him or someone else, who spent 5 years studying with monks. He lived in a monastery with some monks, and there was 27 principles that this person learned from living with these monks for 5 years. And this quote from one of the principles, I felt like it hit me, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what this full moon is all about. And it says, the problem with thinking is you're always one thought away from reality. Drop your labels, descriptions, and judgments. Look again and again and see how things really are. Your anxiety, fear, and self-doubt can't survive this process. That is the accumulation of what this full moon is really asking of us. So let's take a look and get some additional information with the tarot and see how we best can leverage this in our personal lives. All right, how best can we leverage this full moon in Libra? Wow, okay. Well, this is very interesting. Okay, so 2 major arcana cards come up out of 5, which I think is significant. Major arcana cards are the big milestones, big themes, and then the minor arcana, which are like the 7 of Swords, the 3 of Cups, the 5 of Wands. Those are like the details. Whereas the major arcana, the Sun card, the Chariot, the Wheel of Fortune, all of those are like bigger themes. So we have the very first card is, this is where we're coming from. And the Knight of Cups in his reversal This is very interesting because I would relate this card very much to Pisces. A lot of times, this card, the armor on the knight, literally has the two fishes associated with Pisces. And the Knight of Cups is associated with art, with creativity, intuition, romanticism. And when he's in his reversal, it's like that has been pretty stagnant. So we may have been feeling kind of like lethargic, lack of inspiration, emotionally somewhat unbalanced, perhaps even like, a little bit too like self-absorbed, as in like kind of not just honoring the shadows and working with them, but maybe like really kind of wallowing in all of that, becoming really heavy and depressed. And what's beautiful about this is that that is very much shifting in a very big way. Like this knight has taken the opportunity to go within, to, even if there's like some sort of like kind of like over enmeshment with the shadow, there's an emergence now of like the fog has dissipated, and now there's a light of a new day. We have the Ace of Cups, my friends. This is joy. This is yeah, I mean, by and far it's joy. It's like you're literally, your cup is running over. And then the Sun card comes right after. This is one of the best cards in the deck. The Sun card is about success. It's about the dawn of a new day. Chances are you've done a lot of like healing over here with like inner child work. And even if there was some like over enmeshment with kind of like the heaviness, like you have transmuted it. And you're transmuting it, you're moving through it, and now coming from this dawn of this new day, we're ready to shift things. We're ready to shift. The Wheel of Fortune is the card that is literally that tipping point. And because Mars represents that fulcrum, like the Wheel of Fortune would be the fulcrum in the tarot deck. It's right there in the middle, and it's that tipping point that goes from what was and then brings us into the second chapter or a new phase. And I want to get some additional information, please, on the Seven of Swords reverse, which is the very last card. So, what is the nature of this? Okay, so, and then I'm going to ask a follow-up question. Now, the Two of Swords reversed is what comes up, which is a reluctance to make a decision. Libra energy does have a bit of analysis paralysis around it. So despite the fact that we're feeling inspired and our energy is returning and there might be some clarity coming up, there's still like this reluctance to make certain decisions. And I think that is like that fear and doubt that we were talking about that's coming up. So how best might we make this decision, come into a place where we feel like we can make good decisions? How best to come into a place of decisiveness? All right, so this is telling us like why there's an indecisiveness, right? So the Seven of Swords is it's a bit about escapism. Also, for some folks that are watching this, this might also be a bit about betrayal or being lied to, because that's the other part of this card, is that there is a desire to circumnavigate around the hard things because of the fact that there might be some trust issues that are coming up, and or just really wanting to find the easy button for this, not really wanting to make the hard decisions, but there really is no way around it. The reason why this is difficult to make this decision is because there's a sense of injustice. And also like a feeling of like, if I make this decision, I really don't know how I'm going to have balance in my life because there's too many unknown factors. And this is also coming from a place of like, not of one of the old things that might be coming up is the fact that we haven't been feeling supported. Not really. Or we may not feel supported if we were to make this decision. That might be one of the risks that are coming up is that, you know, am I going to burn bridges, or, you know, my family, friends, colleagues may not be aligned, whatever it might be. We're just afraid that there isn't going to be support around this decision. And so the the remedy here then is like, if we do decide to make the decision, in fact, I would say it's probably a good idea that if you're feeling this way, you know, you might want to just pause for the next couple weeks because things are going to get less intense by May. So how best to overcome this? What happens when we transmute this and make this decision? Okay. So, one of the reasons why, what will help us make the decision is meditation, stillness. Listen to your spirit. That's that Pisces energy. That Pisces energy, it is creating a clearer pathway, a clearer channel for us to hear our intuition, the whispers of the intuition over the yells of the conscious mind and the ego. And that a lot of us, we are concerned that we are going to have that we're not going to be financially supported with this decision, or that we don't have the financial resources in order to make whatever it is that we want to make happen. So the remedy to that goes back to following your joy and taking those small incremental steps. You don't have to like take an entire leap. You don't have to get out like the catapult in order to get yourself to where you want to go. One step forward is one step forward. So trust that the shift is happening on its own. Do take the small incremental steps towards where it is that you need to go. Do make a decision from a place of peace after you have rested, after you have maybe let go of any kind of heightened emotional state, and then have come back down to a more of a place of neutrality. That is going to help give you clarity. And in this time of clarity, if you are needing a reflection, I do look at, the reason why I do these readings is because it helps us see how everything is connected. And also what tarot allows us to do is it allows us to energetically look at how things are patterning around a particular circumstance or situation, and see what the most likely outcome is if we make certain decisions. So if you're needing some additional clarity, take a look at the link below at info@bethewholeyou.com is my email. My website is bethewholeyou, just the letter u.com, and you can book your session there. I do have an announcement that I am launching a program here very shortly that is called Sensitivity to Strength. It is here to help people who are highly sensitive or who are empathic be able to avoid and or to bounce back from burnout, to up-level their confidence and to trust their intuition, and to create a community of like-minded individuals that are supportive in being able to manage and to navigate some of the rather unique challenges that come with being highly sensitive and highly intuitive. So I look forward to giving you more information as that unfolds, and I am looking forward to seeing you back here in a couple weeks, where we're going to take a look at what the new moon that's coming up in a couple weeks, how it is going to take all of this heightened energy and continue to create this path of a new beginning. Thank you all, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.